An NBA champion voluntarily gave up millions, changed his name, and vanished from his previous life. And soon, he mysteriously disappeared while traveling in the Pacific Ocean. Why did his own brother turn out to be the main person in this story? Who used the champion's documents and bank cards after his disappearance? And what actually happened aboard the yacht? This mystery remains unsolved to this day. And at the end of the video, a little-known fact about Bison Dele awaits you, which even many NBA fans do not know. Imagine a man who achieved almost everything millions of basketball players dream of. He became an NBA champion, earned a huge fortune, played alongside the greatest stars of his generation, and could have remained one of the most sought-after players in the league for years to come. But one day, he voluntarily gave all of this up. He left basketball, changed his name, set off to travel the world, and seemed to vanish from his former life. And a very short time later, he disappeared for real. In the summer of 2002, Bison Dele set out to sea on his own yacht. There were only a few people on board. However, the yacht returned without its owner. He was never seen again. His body was never found, and the event turned into one of the most mysterious stories not only in the world of sports, but in the history of high-profile investigations of the early 21st century. How did it happen that a man who had money, fame, a championship title, and complete freedom of choice found himself at the center of events whose answers still spark debate? Why did he suddenly give up millions of dollars just when most players dream of signing new contracts? And did the investigation truly manage to establish what happened during that fateful voyage across the Pacific Ocean? There are too many strange coincidences, unexpected decisions, and unanswered questions in this story. The deeper investigators tried to look into what happened, the more mysterious the whole picture became. And the most surprising thing is that many people who knew Bison Dele personally could not believe until the very end that he would become the main character of such a tragedy. And at the very end of this video, a little-known fact about Bison Dele awaits you, which even many NBA fans do not know. It is this detail that allows us to look at his personality in a completely different way and understand why he was so different from most stars of his time. Therefore, be sure to watch this story to the end. The future NBA champion was born on April 6, 1969 in Fresno, California. At birth, he was named Brian Carson Williams. Sports surrounded him from early childhood. His father, Melvin Williams, played college basketball and later worked as a teacher and coach. It was he who was one of the first to notice that his son possessed a rare combination of height, coordination, and natural agility. However, behind the outwardly prosperous picture lay a complicated family situation. His parents divorced when Brian was still a child. Later, he got a younger brother, Kevin, with whom fate would link him in the most tragic way. At the time, no one could imagine what role this man would one day play in his life. Meanwhile, the brothers grew up separately, and Brian was entirely focused on sports. His tall stature quickly made him a notable figure among his peers. However, height alone was not enough. Brian worked hard on himself, improved his technique, learned to understand the game, and gradually turned into one of the most promising young centers in the country. Coaches noted that he did not just dominate under the basket due to his physical data, but also possessed good basketball IQ, which was far from common for players of his position. During high school, he regularly drew the attention of university scouts. The leading basketball programs of the country showed interest in him, as the young center's potential was obvious. Doors to big basketball were opening before him, but along with new opportunities came immense pressure. Now, much more than good play was expected of the talented youth. A future professional career awaited him. After graduating from high school, Brian took the next important step. Ahead of him lay college basketball, a place where every match became a test of strength, and any mistake could affect the future. It was there that he had to prove that talks of his immense talent were no accident, but merely the beginning of the road to the NBA. The transition to college basketball turned out to be far from simple. Brian Williams began playing for the University of Maryland team, one of the strongest college basketball programs in the country. Rapid progress was expected of him, but his first seasons turned out uneven. The young center did not always manage to stably unlock his potential, and his relationship with the head coach was complicated. Gradually, it became clear that he needed a change for further development. Ultimately, Brian transferred to the University of Arizona. According to NCAA rules, he had to sit out part of the season, but this decision turned out to be the right one. It was there that he felt more trust from the coaching staff and managed to significantly step up his game. His play became more confident, and NBA club scouts once again began closely monitoring the tall, mobile center who acted equally confidently under his own basket and on the attack. In 1991 came the moment he had worked towards for years. In the NBA draft, he was selected by the Orlando Magic as the 10th overall pick in the first round. This was a high selection, confirming that specialists saw him as a player with a serious future. However, the professional league met the newcomer not at all as he had imagined. His first seasons turned into a constant struggle for playing time. He failed to secure a spot with the Orlando Magic, and soon, a series of transitions began. Then came the Denver Nuggets, Los Angeles Clippers, and Chicago Bulls. From the outside, it might have seemed that clubs simply could not figure out how valuable a player he could become. Somewhere, he lacked trust. Somewhere, high competition hindered him. And sometimes, he simply did not play consistently enough to become indispensable. Yet, even during this difficult period, Brian did not stop working on himself. He gradually grew physically stronger, understood the game better, and transformed into a versatile big man who could not only fight for rebounds and protect the basket, but also contribute on offense. Those who followed his career closely understood that Williams's true potential had not yet been unlocked. That is why his move to the Chicago Bulls became a chance that does not come to everyone. Ahead of him was a team that had already become a legend of world sports, and the opportunity to step onto the court every day alongside players whose names are forever etched in basketball history. It was there that his career finally began to unfold, just as specialists had once predicted. When Brian Williams found himself on the Chicago Bulls roster, the team was already a symbol of an entire era. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman played here, basketball players watched by the entire world. Getting into such a team was not easy, and winning the coaching staff's trust was even harder. But Brian quickly proved he could contribute even surrounded by the greatest players of his time. In the 1997 to 1998 season, he became an important part of Phil Jackson's team rotation. He was not called the main star, but precisely such players often remain unnoticed by the general public while doing a massive amount of work. Williams acted confidently under the basket, fought for rebounds, added power to the team's defense, and was ready to step onto the court precisely when the situation demanded it. That season became historic. The Bulls reached the NBA Finals once again, where they met the Utah Jazz. In a tense series, the team claimed its 6th championship title in 8 years, and Brian Williams became an NBA champion for the first time. For any basketball player, such an achievement is considered the pinnacle of a career. It seemed entirely new opportunities were opening up before him. After the championship season, the era of the legendary Bulls came to an end. Michael Jordan retired, Phil Jackson left the team, and the roster began to change rapidly. For many players, this was a moment of uncertainty. But for Brian, everything turned out quite differently. His value on the market rose significantly. Now he was no longer perceived as a journeyman basketball player constantly changing clubs. He had become a champion, an experienced center capable of strengthening almost any team in the league. Very soon, this was confirmed in practice. Brian signed a major contract with the Detroit Pistons and for the first time received the opportunity to become one of the team's key players. It was here that he played the best basketball of his life, and it seemed that long years of a successful career still lay ahead of him. But right when most players try to use their star status and earn as much as possible, he began thinking about a decision that would shock the entire basketball world. The move to the Detroit Pistons was precisely the chance Brian Williams had waited for over many years. Here, he finally received stable playing time and the opportunity to prove himself without constant struggle for a roster spot.
His confident play quickly justified the club's expectations. He regularly scored points, acted reliably on the boards, and became one of the most useful front-court players. It was in Detroit that many specialists first saw the basketball player whose potential had been discussed since his college days. The 2000 to 2001 season turned out to be the best of his professional career. On average, he scored over 16 points and nearly 9 rebounds per game, demonstrating a high shot conversion percentage. For a center, these were the metrics of a player around whom a team could be built. It seemed an even more lucrative contract, new successes, and possibly a shot at a championship role as one of the leaders awaited him. However, outside the court, Brian's thoughts were increasingly far from basketball. Unlike many NBA stars, he never perceived the game as the sole meaning of his life. Money, fame, and public attention ceased to bring him pleasure. He increasingly told friends that he wanted to see the world, experience other cultures, and live as he saw fit, rather than as dictated by the season schedule. In 2001, something happened that no one expected. At just 32 years of age, while at the peak of his form and remaining one of the league's most sought-after big men, he voluntarily retired from the sport. This decision came as a real shock to club executives, journalists, and fans. Many could not understand why a man capable of earning tens of millions more dollars would simply walk away without any serious health issues. Yet for Brian himself, the choice looked completely natural. He believed freedom was worth far more than any contract. Instead of training sessions, flights, and constant pressure, he chose travel, new experiences, and the ability to manage his own life without looking back at the NBA calendar. It was then that his complete self-re-examination began. Soon, he would decide to leave behind not only professional basketball, but even the name by which the entire sports world knew him. From that moment on, Brian Williams would gradually fade away, and in his place would emerge a man the world would come to know as Bison Dele. After leaving the NBA, Brian Williams practically crossed out his entire former life. For most former players, basketball forever remains a part of their identity, but he sought to completely shed the persona of a professional athlete. He was no longer interested in interviews, social events, or press attention. Instead, he wanted to start all over again, as if the famous basketball player had never existed. It was then that he decided to officially change his name. His new name became Bison Dele. This step was not an attempt to attract attention for him, but a symbol of internal renewal. He repeatedly stated that he wanted to live in harmony with his beliefs and not be a man whom others perceived exclusively through the prism of his sports career. The new name became a reflection of that choice. Free of obligations to clubs, Bison Dele set off to travel the world. He spent a lot of time in Asia, Africa, Europe, and the islands of the Pacific Ocean. He was fascinated by diving, sailing, and discovering new cultures. Unlike many former sports stars, he did not seek to surround himself with luxury. He preferred a simple life, far from the noise of big cities and constant attention much more. Friends recalled that with each passing year, he valued independence more and more. He was rarely seen at basketball events, and talk of his former career interested him less and less. It seemed he had truly found what he had been looking for so long: peace, freedom, and the ability to choose his own path. Yet it was precisely during this period that a man reappeared by his side whose relationship could never be called simple. His younger brother, who changed his name from Kevin Williams to Miles DeBoard, accompanied Bison Dele on trips from time to time. From the outside, this looked like an attempt to mend family relations, although observers noticed that tension often arose between the brothers. Back then, no one attached much significance to it. In the summer of 2002, Bison Dele decided to embark on another journey on his yacht, the Hakuna Matata. Along with him, his girlfriend Serena Carlin, Miles DeBoard, and yacht captain Bertrand Salin boarded the vessel. They expected to spend several weeks in the open sea, enjoying freedom and the beauty of the Pacific Ocean. None of them could imagine that this journey would become one of the most mysterious episodes in NBA history, and its finale would forever remain shrouded in numerous questions.
The yacht Hakuna Matata left Tahiti in July 2002. The route passed through the islands of French Polynesia and was then supposed to continue towards Hawaii. For Bison Dele, such voyages had long become a familiar part of life. He felt confident at sea, loved long passages, and rarely set a rigid schedule. So at first, the lack of news caused no alarm. 4 people were on board: Bison Dele himself, his girlfriend Serena Carlin, yacht captain Bertrand Salin, and his younger brother Miles DeBoard. According to available data, nothing unusual happened in the first days of the trip. The last confirmed contacts looked entirely ordinary. And then, communication abruptly cut off. Days passed, then weeks. Relatives and friends began to worry, as this was completely unlike Bison Dele. He truly loved solitude, but he had never vanished for so long as to completely cut off all contact. Gradually, it became clear that something serious had happened. Meanwhile, strange events happening far from the yacht's intended route drew attention. In September 2002, Miles DeBoard suddenly appeared in the American state of Arizona. He was alone. Neither his brother, nor Serena Carlin, nor Captain Bertrand Salin were with him. Even more questions were raised by the fact that he was using Bison Dele's documents and bank cards and attempting to manage his property. Soon it became known that the yacht Hakuna Matata had also vanished. Later it was discovered off the coast of Tahiti, but Bison Dele himself was no longer on board. The vessel could not answer the main question: what happened in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? No signs of a struggle or obvious explanations capable of immediately reconstructing the chain of events were found. When investigators began matching all known facts together, the story began to look increasingly alarming. Miles DeBoard remained the last person who could tell about the events aboard the yacht. It was his testimony that could shed light on the disappearance of 3 people at once. But further developments made this investigation even more mysterious and turned it into one of the most discussed secrets in world sports history. As investigators gathered information, the circle of suspects rapidly narrowed. Practically all known facts pointed to a single person, Miles DeBoard, who was known as Kevin Williams before changing his name. He was the last person to be near Bison Dele, and after the disappearance of the other passengers, he began using his brother's money, documents, and personal belongings. This behavior immediately aroused serious suspicion. The investigation found that upon returning ashore, Miles paid with Bison Dele's credit cards, tried to conduct financial transactions in his name, and freely disposed of his property. For investigators, this became an important part of the overall picture. The main question arose: if Bison Dele was alive, why was another person handling all his affairs? Miles was soon tracked down. However, a full-fledged trial never took place. During talks with law enforcement officers, he denied involvement in the disappearance of his brother and the other people on the yacht. At the same time, his explanations constantly changed, and many details did not match already established facts. After some time, events took an unexpected turn. Miles DeBoard died as a result of an intentional massive insulin overdose. Shortly before this, he managed to give an interview in which he told his own version of events. According to him, the conflict on the yacht began after a quarrel between Bison Dele and Captain Bertrand Salin. Miles claimed that during a scuffle, the captain inflicted fatal injuries on Bison Dele, after which he, supposedly defending himself, entered into a struggle with the captain.
This version also included the death of Serena Carlin, but verifying it was no longer possible. The investigation found no sufficient confirmation for these words and considered them highly dubious. Most experts concluded that the most likely scenario was the premeditated elimination of all three of Bison Dele's companions by Miles de Board himself, followed by the concealment of evidence in the open ocean. It was this version that formed the basis of the official investigation findings, although due to the absence of bodies and the impossibility of conducting full judicial procedures, the case never received a final legal conclusion. The biggest mystery of this story has remained unchanged for over 2 decades. Neither Bison Dele nor Serena Carlin nor Captain Bertrand Salin were ever found. The Pacific Ocean permanently kept the answers to many questions, and the disappearance of the former NBA champion turned into one of the most enigmatic stories in the world of professional sports. That is why interest in this case does not fade to this day, and researchers and journalists continue to return to the events of that fateful voyage time and time again. Bison Dele's story still remains one of the most mysterious in all of NBA history. Decades have passed, yet interest in it does not wane. Documentaries, journalistic investigations, and numerous publications return once again to the events of the summer of 2002, trying to find answers that never received a final explanation. Yet if we strip away all versions and assumptions, one thing becomes obvious. Bison Dele was not at all like most professional sports stars. Basketball was never the sole purpose of his life. He did not strive at any cost to set records, earn as much money as possible, or remain in the spotlight until the end of his career. Having achieved a championship title and financial well-being, he made a choice that seemed completely inexplicable to many. He preferred freedom, travel, and the ability to live by his own rules. Former teammates and journalists who interacted with him often said that Bison Dele gave the impression of a man constantly seeking something greater than sports achievements. He was interested in other countries, new cultures, books, languages, and life far from the familiar NBA world. Perhaps that is why he left his career without regret, at a time when most players are only starting to think about the largest contracts. It is this feature that makes his story so unusual. Millions of people dream of being in an NBA champion's shoes, but Bison Dele voluntarily gave up everything others are ready to dedicate their whole lives to sports for. He found what he considered true freedom. But fate ordained that his final journey turned into a mystery that will most likely never be fully solved. And, as promised at the beginning of the video, here is a little-known fact about Bison Dele. Despite his championship with the Chicago Bulls and successful NBA career, after retiring, he consciously distanced himself from the basketball world to such an extent that he practically stopped maintaining ties with it. During his numerous travels, he rarely told new acquaintances about his past and preferred to be perceived not as a former NBA star, but as an ordinary traveler. Many people he communicated with in different countries had no idea that a champion of the world's strongest basketball league was standing right next to them. Perhaps this particular detail best shows the kind of man Bison Dele truly was. The story of Bison Dele still gives no rest to basketball fans, or those who have studied the most mysterious disappearances for years. He lived a life that did not fit into the usual sports star script at all. First, he proved capable of climbing to the NBA summit, then voluntarily gave up fame and millions, and after that, vanished without a trace during a journey meant to be just another adventure. Quite a few questions remain in this story to this day. The investigation arrived at the most probable version of events,
But due to the lack of direct evidence, some details will likely remain a secret of the Pacific Ocean forever. That is why the case of Bison Dele continues to spark debate and interest worldwide more than 20 years later. And, as I promised at the very beginning, here is the little-known fact. When Bison Dele officially changed his name, he did not do it for a loud stunt or press attention. He wanted to completely step away from the image of a former NBA star and start life with a clean slate. During his travels, he frequently met people who had no idea an NBA champion stood before them. Moreover, many learned about his sports past only long afterward, and some never learned at all. For him, this was no accident, but a conscious choice. Perhaps it is this detail that best characterizes Bison Dele. While thousands of athletes dream of being remembered for as long as possible, he consciously tried to leave fame behind. But fate decreed otherwise. Today, his name is remembered not only because of his championship title with the Chicago Bulls, but also because of one of the most mysterious stories in world basketball history. If you found this story interesting, be sure to write in the comments which version of events seems most likely to you. And if you love real stories about NBA legends, their incredible rises and tragic fates, subscribe to the channel. Many more stories lie ahead that are no less amazing than the fate of Bison Dele.